Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Divorced Woman's Guide podcast. It is your host, Wendy Sterling, and I am really excited to share today's episode with you all because it's going to take you guys on a little bit of a journey, specifically my journey of self-discovery and how it was that I was able to truly step into my new life, my new identity, and my new voice. So this is an episode you may want to listen to a couple of different times. So you don't want to forget to hit the subscribe button so that you guys do not miss a single episode. And then that way you can more easily find and come back to this particular one. So for those of you who know me really well, I like to level set with explaining what words mean to me so that you guys can see the lens through which I am sharing information with you. And really what I consider to be a journey of self-discovery was my process through which I was really able to understand who I was based on what I had gone through. And that essentially means that I didn't compare myself to other people. So that journey that I went on was one that I was really focusing on me, focusing on what my values were, what my interests were, what my needs were, my wants, my dreams, knowing my strengths as well as my weaknesses. And through my own journey of self-discovery, I was able to really be conscious of my authentic self and to really stand in my own power of making choices for a meaningful and ultimately a much happier life. And let me just stress the word choice, making choices. And ultimately, my process of self-discovery was sealed in, right? The last stage for me was understanding what forgiveness was, self-forgiveness. And forgiveness, okay, it is a choice. It is a choice that you make to move forward. Forgiveness is not a process. It's not a feeling. It is a choice. And it is a choice that you make from your heart, for your heart. And when you make that choice, it then flows throughout the rest of your soul and your body and your mind and your being. And when you choose to forgive yourself, at least I can say when I chose to finally forgive myself, what that allowed me to do was to let go of all of that negative, low vibration, frequency and energy, to release the resentment and the bitterness, because all I was doing was hurting myself. And it's funny because we tend to be generous in our ability to give to others, but yet when it comes to ourselves, we are so freaking hard on ourselves. Do you know what I mean? And what we forget is that we're human. And part of the forgiveness process is understanding that we are just human beings. We are learning, and our mistakes, okay, are not a bad thing. It's information that is telling us what not to do. And it's not about the fall. It's about how it is that you choose to get up and do things differently. And that means standing back up and moving on. And so my own process of self-discovery that ultimately was through the path of forgiveness meant that I was willing to take accountability for who I was in my marriage. It meant that I was able to accept the behavior that I had engaged in, that I accepted what happened. And until I was able to do that, there was no way I was going to move past anything. There was no way I was going to move on with my life. And I want to talk through a couple of the things that I know were going on in my head, and I have to believe that they're going on in yours as well, as to why it's so freaking hard for you to start forgiving yourself. So I remember very, very deeply that I thought that any mistake I made, I would just get so angry at myself. I would punish myself. I would berate myself over like the stupidest, smallest mistakes. And what I know to be true is that when we engage in that self-loathing activity, that is what is continuing to feed the guilt and the regret and the anger and the resentment. And I was really good at ruminating on stuff. How many of you guys can relate to that? I mean, I just would replay stuff in my head over and over and over again. And I would also reiterate in my head my anger and the self-loathing, which, what do you think that does? Well, it makes it way easier for you to dwell on those negative emotions. And what self-forgiveness really helped me to understand is that when I would finally just acknowledge that I screwed up, that I made mistakes, that there were things about myself that I had to change if I wanted to have a healthy, happy relationship. And the more I resisted that change and admitting that to myself, I was making my life that much harder. I was making the healing and self-discovery process that much more challenging. You know, I walk my clients through this multiple times, actually, where we go through what you think your flaws are, what you see as your flaws. Because until you're actually able to admit it, to say it out loud, to be ready to see it, you're not going to change it. And it's going to make forgiving yourself so much harder. And it's about forgiving yourself for thinking these things, for seeing yourself as this way. And so one of the reasons, or one of the ways actually, that I talked myself into thinking that I was forgiving myself was just overlooking or excusing the behavior, right? Just coming at it with, well, I did act this way, but it was because da, 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 right? No, that is not helpful to you. That is not what is going to release the guilt and to allow you to start forgiving yourself. Like, part of the process of self-discovery is really looking at yourself under a microscope. It's really about you allowing yourself to really look at all the parts of yourself. And the key element when you're doing that is what's called self-compassion, right? Really having compassion and empathy for the fact that you did your best at the time, those were the tools that you had and you didn't have any other ones. And until you make amends with yourself, you're not going to get to a place where you're really, truly moving on. And there may be so many different reasons, you guys, that you're struggling with forgiving yourself, right? Maybe you're worried you're going to make the same mistake again, or perhaps you're worried about how facing your actions might damage your self-esteem. But here's what I know to be true is that when you take those baby steps to truly change and to look at yourself, it is going to make all the difference, because having somebody there to also guide you, to help process the feelings that are coming up, to help you develop new ways of thinking, coping mechanisms, and ways to not make those same mistakes again moving forward. And forgiving yourself, I know, can be difficult, but it's also not like a one size fits all process, right? Like, so many of us either skip steps or we're starting somewhere different. And what the process of self-discovery through forgiveness really means is that you are having compassion for wherever it is that you are, whatever it is that your thoughts are. And by starting there, you'll notice that you just start to reduce your stress and your overwhelm and your anxiety. We all make mistakes. I said that before. And of course, there's things that I regret. There's things that I feel just awful at how I treated my ex-husband. But the more I kept myself in that self-hatred and in the pity party, as I call it, it really made it hard for me to get out of my own way, to start working on my self-esteem, to really start stepping into a place where I was going to grow as a person. I knew, because there was so much resistance around this, I knew that there was something powerful for me on the other side. And typically the women that I have the privilege of coaching and working with, this is something that they struggle with as well, because it's just so much easier to beat ourselves up. And the whole forgiveness thing is like, wait, what? I don't want to do that. How do I do that? Sure, on the surface, I forgive myself, but it's really about understanding the steps that you take towards forgiving yourself. And the piece of it that comes on top of it is, and this is where the self-discovery piece comes in, is it's all about preventing the same behaviors from happening again in the future. So until you learn from your mistakes, until you learn and make better choices, how is it that you think that you are going to get into a place where you feel like you are fully moving forward, where you know yourself fully? Now, I know forgiving yourself is not easy. Trust me, I fought it. It was the hardest part. It is actually a part of my 5-step process that we spend the most time talking about, because what I know to be true on the other side is that forgiving yourself is the most freeing thing that you can do. I remember the day that not only that I forgave myself, but that I also forgave my ex-husband for his affair. And from that day forward, my soul, my heart has felt so relaxed, and it has felt so healed. And it was a choice, right? Remember at the beginning of the episode, I said forgiveness is a choice. It was a choice that I made, and it was a choice that I made for myself, not for him, not for my kids, not for anybody. I made that choice for me. That was me choosing me. And when you choose yourself, the world just opens like an oyster, you guys. So that was my journey on how it was that self-discovery opened me up to really, truly just living my best life. And it happened through self-forgiveness. I hope that you guys enjoyed this week's episode. You know that I try to share some nuggets of information, not only from my own experience, but also from the hundreds of thousands of clients that I have had the privilege of supporting, to help you navigate wherever it is that you guys are in your divorce process. I hope that you guys have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day. Sending you all so much love, light, and joy as always. Mwah. Bye, everybody.